How's it going, ladies and gentlemen? My name is Bill, and welcome to UFO Files. Hope you all are fantastic. Hope you all are well. Got a little bit of a long video for you today. It's going to be about astronauts, the UFO sightings and encounters, all of which are true story and are on record. So before we get started into this video, as it's going to be a long one, I need you to go to the kitchen, go get a beverage, coffee, tea, water, hell, you might be feeling a little bit cheeky and get a little bit of whiskey. Before we get started, please make sure to drop a like on the video, and if you're new, why not subscribe and smack the notification bell. We're really close to, I think, 400 subscribers. It'd be great if we can do that. Anyway, without further ado, what say we get into today's video. Man has wondered if we were alone in the universe. There have been many different forms of proof throughout the time, from ancient UFO paintings of long ago to pictures of unidentified flying objects overhead to thousands of eyewitnesses, but none are substantial as the great scientists that we have put into space ourselves to see with their own eyes, ears and instruments. Unfortunately, even though NASA is a public program for the people, most of its funding comes from the defense budget, turning these great minds into political slaves. They must be sworn to secrecy under a severe penalties and serve their country, keeping their astonishment knowledge confidential until the time is right. These are the accountants. These are their accounts, statements and quotes of these great men and what they have witnessed in space, on Earth and in their laboratories. The undeniable proof that aliens are real and they are watching us. Neil Armstrong and Edwin Buzz Aldrin, on the day of their historic moon landing of Apollo 11 on July 21st, 1969, it became quite clear, NASA astronauts Neil Armstrong and Edwin Buzz Aldrin, that there were other spacecrafts and beings on and around the moon with them. One of the astronauts talked about seeing a light in the crater during the television transmission, which a request to the moon control about what to do next. That's when the broadcast blanked out for almost 2 minutes. Fortunately, there was private AM radios operating with VHF capabilities that caught the following private transmission between Houston and Apollo 11. According to former NASA employee Otto Binder, here's an excerpt of the transmission.
An object which is at the same place all the time and appears to be tumbling. Well, we've had it ever since yesterday. It just seems to be tagging along with us.
On another transcript from Sam Pepper, who said he got his transcript from a leak close to the top that can't be verified, reads as follows. Moon, there are giant things. No, no, no. This is an optical illusion. No one is going to believe this. Houston, what? What the H is happening? What's wrong with you? Moon, they're here, on the surface. Houston, what's their muffled noise emission? Interrupted interference. Control, Apollo 11. Moon, we saw some visitors. They were here for a while, observing the instruments. Houston, repeat your last information. Moon, I say, there were other spaceships lined up on the other side of the crater. Houston, repeat. Moon, let us sound. The orbiter in 625 to 5 atomic relay connected. My hands are shaking so badly I can't do anything. Film, if geese or those D-Net cameras have picked up anything, what then? Houston, have you picked up anything? Moon, I didn't have any film at hand. 3 shots of these sources or whatever they were ruining the film. Houston, control here. Are you on your way? What is this uproar of UFOs over the moon? They've landed here. They're watching us. Houston, the mirrors, have you set them up? Moon, yes. They're in the right place, but whatever made these spaceships surely can come tomorrow and move them over and out. Also, during the interview between the anonymous professor and Neil Armstrong, Neil admitted that there were other beings out there with them. Professor, what really just happened out there with the Apollo 11? Armstrong, it was incredible, of course. We had always known that there was possibility that facts. We were warned off by the aliens. There was never any question then of space station or moon city. Professor, what do you mean, warned off? Armstrong, I can't go into details except to say that the ships were far superior to ours, both in size and in technology. Boy, they were big and menacing. No, there is no question of a space station. Professor, but NASA had other missions after the Apollo 11. Armstrong, naturally, NASA was committed at the time but couldn't risk a panic on Earth. But it was really quick. Scoop and back in again. According to Dr. Vladimir Azusa, Neil Armstrong relayed the message to the mission control that two large mysterious objects were watching them after having landed near the moon module. However, this message was never relayed to the public because NASA censored it. According to Dr. Alexander Kasatsav, Buzz Aldrin took a colour movie film of the UFOs from inside the module and continued filming after he and Armstrong went outside. Armstrong confirmed that the story was true, but refused to go into further detail beyond admitting that the CIA was behind the cover-ups. In 1972, a former chief of NASA Communications Systems, Maurice Shuttle, came clean and confirmed that Armstrong and all other space exploration missions were followed by extraterrestrial beings, most likely from our own solar system, and that Armstrong has reported seeing two UFOs on the rim of the crater encounter. Was common knowledge in NASA, but nobody has talked about it until now. Apollo and all Gemini flights were followed both at distance and sometimes also quite closely by space vehicles of extraterrestrial origin, flying saucers or UFOs, if you want to call them that. Name every time it occurred, the astronauts informed Mission Control, who ordered them absolute silence. I think that Walter Shea observed Mercury was the first of the astronauts to use the codename as Santa Claus to indicate the presence of a flying saucer next to the space capsule. However, his announcements were barely noticed by the general public. It was very little different when James Lovell on board the Apollo 8 command module came out from behind the moon and said for everybody to hear, please be informed that there's a Santa Claus. Even though this happened on Christmas Day 1968, many people sensed a hidden meaning behind the word. On May 15th, 1963, Major Gordon Cooper blasted off into space to do a 22-orbit mission around the Earth. During the last orbit mission, Major Gordon Cooper, the last man to go into space alone, and on the first Mercury mission called into a tracking station at Moose Sea about a green glowing object approaching towards the space capsule. The UFO sighted was picked up and reported on by the National Broadcasting Company, and reporters were told that they would not be able to ask any questions about a UFO sighting. This was not the first UFO Major Gordon Cooper had witnessed. He had spotted another UFO in 1951 while flying in an F-8 Sabre jet over western Germany. They were large metallic discs that were flying at considerable speeds and altitudes and could apparently outmaneuver any American jet. Major Cooper also testified before the United Nations. I believe that these extraterrestrial vehicles and their crews are visiting this planet from other planets. Most astronauts were reluctant to discuss UFOs. I did have an occasion in 1951 to have 2 days off observation of my flight of them. They were in different sizes flying information, generally from the east to west over Europe. According to a taped interview by J.L. Fernando, Major Cooper has said, many years I've lived with a secret in society, imposed to all specialists and astronauts. I can now reveal that every day in the USA our radar instruments capture objects of form and composition unknown to us. There are thousands of witnesses and a quantity of documents to prove this, but nobody wants to make them public. Why? Because the government is afraid that people may think the worst and panic. So the idea is we have to avoid panic by all means. I was furthermore witness to an extraordinary phenomena here at this planet Earth. It happened a few months ago in Florida, where I saw with my own eyes a defined area of ground being consumed by flames, with 4 indents left by a flying object, which had then transcended to the middle of a field. Beings had left the craft. There were other traces to prove that they seemed to have studied topography. They had collected soil samples and eventually they had returned to where they had come from, disappearing at enormous speeds. I happen to know that the government did just about everything to keep this incident from the press and the TV, fear of panicky reaction from the public. Dr. Jerry Lineberger was on the MIR Russian space station for about 5 months, doing various tasks, and said to have witnessed real UFO several times in his short stay on the space station. In November 2002, 4 years after being aboard the space station, Jerry said to a German retail conference in the Emirate Towers Hotel, in presence of the journalists, "I have been asked this question so many times in 5 months in space. I have seen unidentified flying objects for sure. Sometimes I looked out the window and I could see a metallic thing, like a spoon flying. The biggest problem in space is that it's very hard to judge the distance. It could have been a spoon or a spaceship thousands of miles away. Let me tell you though, one thing, I have never heard someone knock at the door and say, 'Jerry, let me in.'" James Lovell and Frank Borman witnessed a UFO on their record-breaking 14-day flight. Borman told Gemini Control at Cape Kennedy he was looking at an unidentified flying object outside the craft. Gemini Control proceeded to report that it was simply their booster rockets, but Borman said he could see their booster rocket clear as day in front of him. During James Lovell's flight on Gemini 7, bogey at 10 o'clock high. Capcom, this is Houston, say again? Lovell said it was a bogey at 10 o'clock high. Capcom Gemini 7. Is that the booster or an actual sighting? Lovell, we have had several actual sightings. Capcom, estimated distance or size? Lovell, we have the booster in sight. Edgar Mitchell is an extremely respected man in science and a pilot of the Apollo 14 lunar module mission, being the 6th person to walk on the moon. On February the 9th, 1971, and on July the 23rd, 2008, Britain's Kerrang radio show, Edgar Mitchell announced to the world that most of the people that witnessed the UFO Roswell crash of Roswell, New Mexico were telling the truth about the extraterrestrial flying objects that were being covered up by the US government. I happen to be privileged enough to be on the fact that we've been visited on this planet and the UFO phenomena is real. Dr. Mitchell said, being such a respected individual and having insider knowledge and access to the NASA files and documents, Edgar Mitchell felt it was important that the truth was released to the world by an important and reliable source like himself. He also said that many times of the locals told him that the crash of an alien spacecraft in the Roswell area was a real event, and much of the law, I can't say all of the law, but much of the law of the fact that dead bodies were recovered and live ones were recovered. They were not of this world. The story, and of course it was reported in the Roswell Daily Record one day and promptly denied the next day. In a cover story of the weather balloon that was pure nonsense, that was a cover-up, NASA released a statement after Mitchell's disclosed this information, which simply stated, NASA does not track UFOs. NASA is not involved in any sort of cover-up about alien life on or off this planet, or anywhere in the universe. In a recent interview with the Discovery Channel, he made the following statement regarding what he had been told about Roswell. "I did take my story to the Pentagon, not to NASA, but to the Pentagon, and I asked for the meeting with the Intelligence Committee of the Joint Chiefs and the staff, and I got it. I told them my story and what I know, and eventually he had that confirmed by the Admiral that I spoke with. He said indeed what we're saying was true.
Do you believe in
Here
life
is the
on other
interview."
planets?
Oh yes, there's not much question at all, but there's life throughout the universe. We're not alone in the universe at all.
You convinced that we're not alone in the universe?
Oh, I know for sure we're not alone in the universe. Now, have we been able to identify for sure where the other planets are? No, we have not. Certainly not in our solar system. But they've identified quite a number of planets now that very likely could be life-bearing planets. And I happen to be privileged enough to have be in on the fact that we have been visited on this planet. And the UFO phenomenon is real, although it's been covered up by our governments for quite a long time.
Whoa! Hang on a minute. Well, this is big. So, whoa! This is all of this is quite a shock to me.
Well, I'm sorry you haven't been reading the papers recently. It's starting to open up quite a bit.
So you're telling me? Well, there's a lot of information to take on board. Hang on a minute. I mean, listen. I've heard crazy UFO nuts tell me this kind of thing before. I've never had Dr. Ed Mitchell, the 6th man to walk on the moon, a respected scientist in his own right, announced to me that we've been visited by aliens from other planets, and that they definitely are out there. There's no debating it.
Well, that's the first time you've ever talked to me, or I've told you about it before.
So you believe in all of you believe the whole deal?
There's more nonsense out there about this than there is real knowledge, but it is a real phenomenon, and there's quite a few of us it's been well covered up by all of our governments for the last 60 years or so, but slowly it leaks out, and some of us are privileged to have been briefed on some of it. I happen to have grown up in I don't even know whether you know this place, Roswell, New Mexico, where presumably the Roswell incident of 1947 took place, and I'm quite knowledgeable of the lore there, and since I grew up there. But I've also been in military circles and intelligence circles that knows beneath the surface of what has been public knowledge that, yes, we have been visited. So,
and be serious, you're not going to go, I was just pulling your leg about that. That's not true. I'm just wondering if I've stumbled upon astronaut humour, and in a couple of minutes you're going to go, I was only pulling your leg.
No, I won't do that.
Wow. So what? So you've been briefed on the fact that we've been visited.
Well, I have briefed is one word for it. I have been involved in much of this work. Now, it's not my main work. It's not my main interest. But I have been deeply involved in certain committees and certain research programs with very credible scientists and very intelligence people that do know the real inside story, and I am not hesitant to talk about it.
What is the real inside story?
Well, I've just been telling you, we have been visited.
Are we in regular contact, or was it a one-off crash, or?
Well, no, there's quite a bit of contact going on. I can't tell you because I don't know all the extent of it. I don't know all the inside details because that isn't my really main interest. But the fact that we have been visited, the Roswell crash was real, and a number of other contacts have been real and ongoing, is pretty well known to those of us who have been briefed and been close to the subject matter.
So why is it being covered up then? Why is it that it's not mainstream?
Well, the reason for that goes back to the main instance really started taking place after World War II. When in the United States, at least, I can't speak for the European governments or the South American governments, all of whom have recently started opening their files. And it's been open. This is starting to open up, and just read the internet or look at some of the press, international press. You'll start to get the stories that are coming out now. But
I've had people on the show telling me that that the governments are mounting up towards disclosure, towards saying that this is the case. Do you think it will be the case that there will be an actual disclosure on this, maybe this year, that the governments will come out?
I don't know whether it'll be this year in the United States, but certainly we've already had it in the last few years from the Belgian government, the French government, the Brazilian government, the Mexican government. They've opened their files and admitted that they had the files.
Right, okay, let me get my head together. Okay, listen, here's what I know. I've had people on the show talking about the fact that the Catholic Church has said belief in life on other planets doesn't compromise your Catholicism.
Of course, that just happened recently.
Yeah.
In association with a major release, I believe, of the British government, some of the British government files. They weren't their deepest files, but there were some files released.
Yeah. What's happening is at the moment, over the next 4 years, all of the UFO files here in the UK are being released. Do you think it's the case that we are ramping up towards maybe the UK admitting?
Well, I can't say how fast this is going to happen, but certainly the public awareness of it is increasing. The public acceptance is increasing. The amount of misinformation and covert and attempts to cover up seem to be decreasing. I think we're headed toward real disclosure, and some very serious organizations moving in that direction.
You've had a long time to think about this. What do you think the impact will be on the world when it is finally mainstream news that there are alien beings that live outside this planet?
Well, I think at this point it's probably ho-hum, so what's new? I think that certainly in the United States, there's well over 70% of the people now accept this as fact, although they do not know all the correct story. They do know that there has been, or accept the fact that there has been visitation and that there's UFOs in the skies all the time that are very likely alien craft. Now, not all of them are. I suspect some of them are homegrown. I suspect that in the last 60 years or so, that there has been some back engineering and the creation of this type of equipment, but it's not nearly as sophisticated yet as what the apparent visitors have.
So, as part of this, as part of you knowing about this, and also going public with it, are you worried for your own safety with this kind of stuff, or are you convinced that the
no, I think those days are gone. That used to be a concern among the people on the inside, but I don't think they're knocking anybody off for that anymore, or doing drastic things to them.
What do you think the intent of the aliens is? Is it hostile or peaceful?
No. It's not hostile. It's pretty obvious that if it were hostile, we'd have been gone by now.
Really? I mean, what?
We could have been.
Wow.
We had no defense, if that's what their real intent was.
And what are we talking? What do they look like? Are we talking like, the traditional sort of?
You've seen some of the pictures. The pictures that I know of, some of them are these little people that look strange to us. As far as I know, from my contacts that have had contact, that's pretty accurate.
Wow. Do you think other people who were involved in the moon landings know about this?
Some of them do. But again, it's like other people. If you're interested enough to dig into it and want to know about it, you can know about it.
Because, man, listen, I don't want. I know you're a busy guy, and I know there's other people who need.
Yeah, this phone they're not leaving me alone with this other phone that's ringing all the time, and I'm by myself here.
This has been easily one of the most significant conversations of my life. Unbelievable. I want to thank you for joining us.
You bet.
And Dr. Ed Mitchell, listen, you're a friend of the show, if you want to accept that friendship. Wow, what an incredible...
Donald Slabe, and a member of the Mercury astronaut team, said that he had been witness to a UFO in 1951. In an interview, I was testing a P-51 fighter in Minneapolis when I spotted this object. I was about 10,000 feet on a nice, bright, sunny afternoon. I thought the object was I realised, that's no kite, it's going to fly that high. As I got closer, it looked like a weather balloon, grey and about 3 feet in diameter. But as soon as I got behind it, the damn thing, it didn't look like a balloon anymore, it looked like a saucer. A disc. About the same time I realised that it was suddenly going away from me. And there was I running about 300 miles per hour. I tracked it for a little way, and then all of a sudden the damn thing just took off. Pulled about a 45-degree climbing turn, and accelerated and just flat disappeared. These are just some more bonus quotes that I couldn't really fit in to the full ledge of story there. But these have all been documented into United States of America. NASA employee Scott Carpenter was an astronaut who flew different missions throughout his career. He was quoted saying, at a time where astronauts were in space, they were under constant surveillance by UFOs. Also on a Mercury Aurora flight in May the 24th, 1962, he had taken a picture of a UFO, but of course it became property of the US government and disappeared, never reaching the public eye. Commander Eugene Cernan was a commander of the Apollo 17 spaceflight in Los Angeles. In the Times article, 1973, he quoted, "I've been asked about UFOs, and I said publicly I thought that UFOs were somebody else or another civilization." NASA pilot James Walker quoted saying, at a lecture at the Second National Conference on Peaceful USES of Space Research in Seattle, "I don't feel like speculating about them. All I know is what happened on the film, which was developed after the flight, referring to one of the desks to seek and detect UFOs. His X-15 mission in his fighter jet on 1962, which he filmed up to 6. According to sources, Major Robert White on July 17, 1962, Major Robert White reported a UFO during his 58-mile-high flight of an X-15. Major White reported, "I have no idea what it could be. It was greyish in colour and about 30 to 40 feet away." Then, according to a Time magazine article, Major White exclaimed over the radio, "There are things out there." There really is. I really hope, guys, you enjoyed this video. If you did, please make sure to drop a like and a share. If you're not already, guys, please make sure to subscribe and hit the bell icon to get notified when I upload. Until next time, have a great day and a great evening, and I will see you in the next video.
Alright, kick back, relax, and grab yourself a beverage. A hop if you wanna just bounce to my leverage. The evidence, as they say, is in the pudding. So show me the money like my name was Cuba Gooding.